Okay.
Hey everybody, welcome to Creative Conversations with David and Donna. I'm David, and
And I'm
today,
Donna.
because we're in quarantine still, like our recent podcast, our last three podcasts, the positives and the creative, we are recording over Skype. So usually
Yep.
when our recording quality, it's like all in person, so it's gonna be sound a little bit different, but we're just adjusting and doing what we can. And a few weeks ago now, we started this series that we wanted to do where we write a sci-fi novel together, but because we both love sci-fi a lot, and so
Yes.
we wanted to do that, but completely on the show and record it because something we've
Yes.
always talked about is wanting to help people write and how we write, what our process is. So, like, what better way to capture that than completely record every single writing session we have of it? And so, this is only the second
Mm-hmm.
episode of that. So, last episode, we established we want to do a sci fi novel. We both love sci fi. You're a huge fan of Star Trek, Donna, bigger than me. And I've been watching some
Oh,
Star Trek
yes.
recently. And um,
Mm-hmm.
now, what we sort of came up with overall was this is just a quick recap. And tell me if I'm missing anything, but it's in the future.
Okay.
Earth is going. Earth is pretty good. I think like most of the problems are kind of solved on Earth. It's 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 almost like a Star Trek kind of you know things are going well, except for there is
Yes.
overpopulation issues. So
Mm-hmm.
the Earth has been sending astronauts and ships to other to colonize other planets, and um, right now we start where we pick up with our characters are they are on a ship that they are in hibernation sleep and they are on their way to Terra 2, which is the first planet that humans are going to like really put effort into colonizing and making a society because it's pretty much just an outpost there now. I think we said that like what was sent there before were like people to establish things so that when these civilians get
Mm-hmm.
there, they can pick up and really get going on making a society on this other planet, which they are calling
Right.
Terra 2, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is they're in hibernation, but there's like a malfunction or something, and um, a couple people, a group of our heroes, they wake up from the hibernation sleep, while the rest of the crew and everyone else on the ship is still in hibernation. And I don't know if we got much further than that.
Well, I have a
Now,
few things to add. We spent quite a lot of the episode last time talking about what is going on Earth because I'm all about making sure that we're coming from an established background before we start the action of the story. And so one of the things that we had just really gone around and around and around about is, is everybody on Earth settled? Are they equal? Or where are they living? How does it work? And the basic concept I think we finally kind of agreed on is that all people on Earth, when they're born, they know they're going to be taken care of. They're going to have a place to live. They're going to have a salary that's at least comparable, not extraordinarily more than anybody else's. So comparable, we can say. But there were people living in the Asia continent who had to cross the ocean to get to work in the Americas, North America in particular, where the entertainment industry was, and where kind of the higher ups or the more what is the word? The jobs most people would prefer to have. They're not necessarily higher paying, higher status jobs or whatever. And the people who live in the Americas feel like everybody has everything they need. They just don't understand that the people who have to ride the train all the way across the ocean for an hour both ways actually don't have anything close to what they have. They're unaware of all
mm-hmm.
that. And so when people start waking up on our cryo ship, there are people who are awaking from all different walks of life. And so through their stories that they tell each other, we kind of reveal to our reader audience what actually is
Mm-hmm.
going on Earth. That was one of the
That's
things that
right.
we talked about.
Yeah, right. So we kind of established that on Earth that we can explore and set up the mythology of that. Right. And so,
Yes.
and I've been thinking about it a lot. And we had a lot of debate about that, about how things are going to be on Earth. Because of course, my first thought is like, so what if everything's horrible and like it's trashy and people are living in garbage? That's just I don't know why I think that way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's just the kind of content I consumed most of my life.
Well, it's also, in my opinion, all that has really been done. It's been so overdone. I mean, there's just so much dystopian stuff about the Earth and the future that's why I specifically said I don't really want that to be at least the overall idea of our
Right,
story,
and
you know?
I've been thinking about it, and I agree, and I like where we're going with it. And so that's what's going on Earth, and I think we'll explore more about. We'll come up with ideas and thoughts later about what's going on Earth, but I think we're both so when we actually pick up with our story, it's people waking up from cryo sleep. And I've been thinking about why.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a malfunction. Maybe what if it's like okay, so let me ask you this. Do you think that humans have encountered other life forms yet?
Well, we went all around that too. And the last thing, the thing that I thought we agreed on is that there's this planet and that we are actually kind of developing this planet alongside other aliens from another planet who have agreed to both like develop this planet together. They're not like moving on to a planet where other aliens already live, which is, of course, what we could decide we're doing. Or we could just change our minds completely and say it's a completely uninhabited planet, or so they think, which could be something that could come in later. That's always
Mm-hmm.
something that happens on Star Trek. They think it's uninhabited because they don't recognize the type of life there is there. So we really do have to decide that. But before we get there, real quick, I just want to throw in we had decided that the year was 3333, which could change as well. But we went all over the world with what the year was going to be, and we decided on that because it was episode 33 when we were talking. And after the podcast, we had decided that it was a pretty large ship, had about 1,000 people on board to help settle the city. And it was like the first wave of people who went to the planet were the builders. They just went and established like places for people to
Mm-hmm.
live and, a way for them to live. The second wave of people who went were like the government, the people who went in and just kind of made sure there was order when people got there, and, organizers to make sure that the people who came on this ship would have, this is your place to live, this is where you work, this is where you get your food, all the infrastructure that's necessary to sustain
Mm-hmm.
life. So these people are not going in to establish, let's, start from the bare earth and build some buildings here that we can, or build structure. They're going to a place where all that's left is inhabitants. They are the inhabitants now. They're going to establish the actual
Mm-hmm.
population on the planet.
Right.
So that was one of the
Right.
things we talked about. So your question, oh, I got completely away from it now, was what? What was
Have
your
we met
question?
other life forms yet? And you reminded me that I think we
Okay.
have
Well,
established we've met like other life forms, someone that is a life form that is sort of on equal footing with humans, it sounds like. And
yeah.
maybe they're having like similar issues, and so we're both going to work together. We have agreed upon that there's this planet that is, I think, uninhabited as far as we know,
Okay.
and both
Mm-hmm.
races are going to work with work together to establish this new colony.
So the question now is, are they going to be like, this is my continent, this is your continent? Are they kind of building side by side and mixing the alien races together as they're, you know what I'm saying? Like, how are they going to handle that? Because
Hmm.
that's pretty
I
huge.
would like to think that at least in my head, what comes up is that they are trying to build side by side together, at least trying.
So, so is it literally like living next door in the same apartment building, or is it more like this is our city, that's your city, and we're going to trade with each other,
Maybe it's
or
like that.
you know
Maybe
what I
like
mean?
this is our city, this is your city. We'll trade with each other.
Okay.
Yeah,
So they're interdependent, but not all on top of each other.
yeah,
And so as the races, learn to be together, it's possible that there would be couples forming that
yeah,
would,
yeah,
cross over to the different cities. It's not like it's prohibited or anything. It's just that they're not going to start off
yeah.
forcing people
Yeah,
together,
I think
you
yeah,
know.
they're not going to force people together, but there's no like restrictions in that necessarily. But maybe there is some prejudice on this new planet of like
Mhm.
it's a new like maybe on Earth we by this point hopefully everybody's gotten over black and white mixing, but you introduce this whole new
Mhm.
dichotomy, and that's
Mhm.
gonna be a theme. And um, I would think maybe the reason that they're doing this is because they encountered each other while looking for other planets to colonize, and they determined like this planet that they're on is um, really the only planet relatively close to both of them that is best for it.
Hmm.
Like, because they could be like, and there could have been years of debate of, well, you take that planet, we'll take this planet, but this planet is obviously the
Hmm.
better planet to be on, and really it would be very unfair to sentence one or the other to this lesser planet or whatever. So that's why they both are on this planet.
So that's all backstory that could possibly
Hmm.
come up if there is some kind of
Yeah, and we'll have to
issue
come
or
up with who
whatever.
this race is, what they look like, what.
Well, and I was going to say there is so much to determine
Hmm.
just there because we're assuming just kind of in the idea that they might intermix or whatever that they're a two
Yeah,
sex. You know what I mean? It could be something completely. I
truly,
mean,
yeah. Um,
So we got to figure out who they are, how what they look
yeah,
like. Apparently, they live under the same conditions we do if we're going to live on the same
yeah.
planet.
Close enough. I think they would
Yeah.
follow like what
So
we understand as life bait. Like they drink water, have to eat food, so like they kind of
yeah,
follow
yeah,
that. Um,
they
I
just
would
look
imagine they
different.
probably look different and evolve differently based on whatever their atmosphere is like. Maybe they have a mostly water planet and maybe they're like fishy or whatever. But I don't know. That's just um, throwing that out there. But
Well, I mean, you could go from the whole like different evolution line, like the lizards that turn in, like the dinosaurs who actually evolved into intelligent beings. There are a lot of those types of aliens out there on shows
right,
I've watched. Or there could be very humanoid looking species, but there's something different about like, and on Star Trek, which is of course what I watch all the time, there's something usually different about the shape of their
yeah,
face or head, or there's different kind of hair, or but they're still basically they look human.
yeah.
So
Um,
that's something we're gonna
Maybe
have
they're
to
a
figure
different
out at
color
some
or
point.
whatever. Maybe they're green and blue humanoids, and
Exactly.
they're. But an important
Yeah.
question: what kind of story do you want to tell? Because
Right. That's you had asked me that last time. Like, what are some of the notes we want to make
because
sure we
I
hit?
really this is my head what I see this being group of ragtag random people wake up through malfunctions of cryopod. Maybe what happened is they were like hit by like an asteroid or something like that, like something that happened that caused a malfunction for whatever reason. We can come up with that with the story, but they're kind of ragtag, and here they are on this ship, and they have to make sure that it gets where they need to go. So I'm thinking like adventure. It's an adventure.
Hmm.
It's called Journey. So it's an
Hmm.
adventure um, about characters learning to like who are very different who come together and they have a goal overall to get to this new planet,
Hmm.
and that's what at
Okay.
least this story would be about. I would imagine that this story starts with them waking up and ends with them getting to the planet.
I totally agree with that. So let me
Okay.
write all that down. Me and my famous notepad again. Okay, so beginning is wake up on ship, and ending is get to planet. So then it's like, what are some of the things that we definitely want to have them encounter? Like, well, first of all, what's the climax? What are some of the conflicts? What are the big scenes that we want to make sure we include? That kind of
Right.
thing.
So
So, what are your thoughts on
I
that?
want them at some point to encounter space whales.
Space
This is
whales.
so random. In my head, I have this vision for like they're go
Okay.
they're like on this
They're space
they're
dwelling
space dwelling
creatures.
creatures who look
Right.
like
Hmm.
whales.
Hmm. There actually is a episode of Star Trek that has something very
Really?
similar to that.
See, this is
Hmm.
coming from Star
And
Trek
they
because I'm thinking of the journey home when they go back to save the whales. They go back in time to get whales, and the whales end up in space
gotcha.
for a second. Like they go back to space to bring the whales to Earth, but overall, for a second, there were whales in space, space whales.
Hmm.
I just
Darby
have this like
Wells here.
magical adventure sort of thing, right? Yeah, where it's like they look out the window and there's these freaking whales like swimming through space as if it were water.
So I feel like I need to find the episode I'm talking about to
Mm-hmm.
show you, and they had to decide how to the what happened is there was the creature and it had a baby, and then the baby thought that the Enterprise was its mother, and it attached and it was draining energy and all that kind
Uh-huh.
of stuff. And then there was a whole they brought it to where the other one came from so it could join its tribe or whatever. I guess it's not a tribe, it's a herd. And then there was a male trying to come in and beat up the Enterprise to establish its dominance, and the Enterprise had to like turn upside down and turn a different color to show submission. And you know what I'm saying? So we that has been done. So we would have to find our way to make it
Mm-hmm.
our own. And so the creatures didn't look like whales, but they moved like sea creatures. They were large and they had like the big fin that moved them around in the back. And they were huge. They were as big as the Enterprise when they were adults. So how big are these whales? Are they the size of whales in our ocean, or are they as big as the ship, or
I
bigger
think
than
they're
the ship,
smaller than the
or
ship,
what?
but they're, like
Okay.
maybe like one of them is like a third the size of the ship, I would think.
Okay. All right.
And they just look like what? I don't know. I'm laughing at myself.
Well, I mean, if it's your thought, I mean, we've been kind of letting this marinate
Mm-hmm.
in our brains, and I'm not saying any idea. And I learned this from reading about Walt Disney. Any idea is something that you should always keep, because even if you don't use it
Mm-hmm.
here, you can use it somewhere else. So it's like, this is an interesting thought. This is what I know about how it's already been done. What do you specifically want to happen? And then see, this is the kind of thing that, as weird as it sounds, could actually work into the plot in a way that you can't
Mm-hmm.
even imagine yet. You know, so it could be that one of the whales is somehow important in beating off some kind of attacking
Mm-hmm.
alien, or it could be that somehow it follows them to the planet and helps them solve some issue once it gets there,
Right.
or you know what I'm
You never
saying? You just
know what's
never
going to be,
you
but at
never know
some
how it's going
point, you're right. But I think it'd be cool to establish this mythology that there's some whales floating around in space.
What is a big group of whales called?
Um,
There is a name. They all have all
I don't know. Is
these
it
interesting
school?
names.
That's fish. I know school's fish.
I don't know. I'll type it in. I'm actually at my
Great.
computer right now. So group of whales is, let's see, a pod maybe? Yes, a group of whales is commonly called a pod, a school,
Okay.
or a gam. So we could just, okay, so this brings up the question, do we have someone who's awake who would know and understand sea creatures enough to know how to relate to this creature, or are they just like basic high school education trying to figure it out? You see
Yep.
what I mean? It could define one of our characters right there. Somebody who's going to the new planets specifically to study the life there, and there's a question there: is there already life on that planet? Are there animal
I would think
species
there'd
they've
be
never
like
seen before on the
animals
planet
and
itself?
plants that we don't know. I wouldn't think there's any like like quote unquote intelligent life, but like
I mean, I
definitely
hear
animals
you.
and plants that are there that are
Flora and fauna. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to kind of develop as well. So animals and plants. I'm going to just put a question mark, because I mean, we're talking about pretty massive world building there.
hmm
Not that we have to
But
define everything, but
yeah,
it could
there has to be a
certainly.
reason they're going to the planet, and I don't think they'd go if there isn't, you know,
Mhm.
animals and plants there to eat. Um,
I got you. You're right. That could have even been one of the reasons that the two planets came to
yeah,
the agreement, is that they both knew they could adapt the way they live and eat and whatever to the type of
yeah,
food and whatever that's available
right.
there.
And that's why they
Gotcha.
decided on the planets
Okay, so
called
space whales,
space
that,
whales.
that brought up a
Yeah.
lot of questions.
Um, so what's something
All
else that
right.
you want to see in this adventure?
Um,
Like where do you want? Is there anything like big like that? Where like, I just had this vision of I want our characters to encounter space whales.
I'm thinking, when I watch what I love in science fiction, I've read tons, and uh, Ray Bradbury, Isaac Asimov. I mean, I just love science fiction because it makes you think. It gives you usually kind of an insight into something that is completely different from what you are used to, and yet it strikes home so clearly into something that you actually are living.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So I felt like one of the key points that we made last time about how the entertainers, like you talked about how now the whole entire East Coast of the United States is turned into Broadway, and the people who provide entertainment are really looked up to. That is something that is so different from our world now, and it's a point we can make about how people who provide entertainment or who just express their creativity in a way that they can share it with other people are actually looked up to and valued. Teachers, I mean, people who provide any kind of education or training for other people would have, finally what they deserve, I guess I could say. Um, Let me think what else. I'm trying to think of like I don't mind the idea of space battle, but I don't think that the ship that we have is designed for that
Hmm.
at all.
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I think that would kind of cause
um,
tension. Like, how are we can't just fire guns. So what are we gonna do about
mhm.
this? And yeah,
So do that. Well, that is one of the things I wrote in my notes is about aliens that are maybe that were cut out of the deal for the planet, and they're like trying to attack the people who are
right.
coming in. But I don't feel like that would go anywhere. They would just attack and kill everybody, and we're done. I mean, unless there is something about the ship that we add
What if
in for
there's like,
defense, or
okay, so here's what I'm going from that. What if like, so there is like defense, but not necessarily offense, and so what if what's happening is our heroes wake up right in the middle of the action because a shot is fired at our ship, like an attacking ship fires a shot, and that hits some certain systems that cause malfunctions that wake up some of the pods, and that's where our heroes sort of wake up and they're like,
hmm,
what's going on? And what if there's
why
an
are we awake?
AI
Yeah.
on the ship that is sort of like,
Okay. Well, there needs to be something. I mean, you can't send a ship on a however many year journey without some
right,
way to
yeah,
maintain it. You don't just put it on
right, and that's
autopilot for
fair
that
enough, but like
long.
what like an actual, not just autopilot, but like an actual artificial intelligence that is like running things in the ship,
Right. That's
right?
what I'm saying.
And
Yes. And so is it a
it can be
hologram?
I
Is
think it
it
would
a
be like it's a hologram, but also like
uh-huh.
it's in the ship, so like, you can hear it over the speakers talking, and it's a computer that also can make
Hmm.
a hologram um
It's
that
physical and can interact with
right,
the
that yeah, that can
controls and
interact with the
such.
controls, or maybe it just controls it by being part of the computer, and
Okay.
but it's a hologram so that like, we can like see the hologram and talk to it. So maybe like, so yeah, maybe there's a artificial intelligence. I'm imagining a woman, like a
Hmm.
woman AI,
Okay.
um,
Hmm.
um, named um, yeah, yeah,
We
what,
don't have
yeah,
to worry about a name. Well, let me ask
mm,
you this. Of course, one of the big themes in Star Trek, especially now that I'm watching Picard, is how artificial life has rights. Like it is actually considered a life form and has rights and should be treated the same as all other intelligent life. So in Picard, that was androids because it was all based on data, and that was true to the series that Picard had fought really hard to recognize androids as a new life form and such. And also in one of the Voyager episodes I just watched, the Doctor, who is a hologram in that show, wakes up way, 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 way in the future, and there's just this crazy history of Voyager on one of the planets that they had like information about Voyager from. And they said in the episode, holograms are considered sentient life and they have to pay for their crimes just like anybody else. So are we going to try to ignore that? Or are we going to have AIs who are more like just kind of, I'm the computer talking to you, I'm not really
no, no,
my
they
own
definitely should be
being?
like their
Or
own like, I would when I imagine, I definitely imagine like a data kind of AI where it's like they have their own personality, and they are not just like
mm-hmm.
robotic computer do things, like they are um what I in a lot of sci-fi, what I've seen is that distinguishes like there's VI, virtual intelligence, which is like that kind of like
Okay.
robotic kind of thing, and then there's AI, which is like the can think for themselves, were created, but do they have rights or whatever? And that's why she's put in charge of the ship.
So she has the ability to like turn herself and her physical form on and off. That was another big thing for Voyager. Like the holographic doctor would only be activated if somebody said activate EMH, and then he would just appear. And then if nobody turned his program off, he would just be wandering around aimlessly until he was given the ability to activate and unactivate or deactivate himself. So
I think
are
that
we
it's
going to
just
have that?
always like in control of itself and in control of the ship.
Okay, well, here's another question. Can it change what it looks like? Or is that the programming? Like the programming is you are a female humanoid and this is your form, or like if she needs a screwdriver, can she just make it appear as one of her
I don't even
fingers?
think she
Or
can be
do you see what I'm saying?
physical. I think it's a hologram.
Well, the holographic doctor is a doctor. Like he does like he feels like flesh and bone, like if you're on the holodeck on Star Trek. Like it's holographic, but it's physical. You interact with it. It's there. And like you can be on the holodeck and you can say turn off the emergency whatever, and you can like actually get shot to death or fall to your death
Well,
or
I don't.
whatever. It's
I mean, I would think that would come into play if I would imagine like what I'm imagining is like it's not a physical being. It's almost like a spirit in the ship that can become a hologram as much as it can appear in like this like blue like see-through thing like a hologram that like it's just to talk to people and see.
that's what holograms are to us now, but the holograms in the Star Trek that I watch they're physical. Like he's a doctor, he can perform surgery. You know what I'm saying? So you never
I never.
thought of
I
it
mean,
that
I don't
way.
really. I don't really like that idea.
Well, here's the issue: if there is a physical problem with the ship, what would the hologram do to fix
Well,
it?
like what do you mean like physical? Like
Like if something needs to be, like a screw needs to be tightened, there needs to be some physical way for that to occur. So is there like an emergency engineer on board that they wake up if that happens?
um
Or, there are some things on a ship that would have to be physically touched to
yeah
fix.
maybe there's like mechs and uh like repair like engineer mechs, repair mechs that keep the thing. Um,
Okay, I don't know what mech
mech is
means. What is mech?
like a robot, like a mech.
What does it mean? Is it a anagram? What am I trying to say? Does
I think
it,
it's
do the
just
letter
like
stand for something?
mechanized, like mechanical something. I don't know.
Okay, so they're like actual robots
Yeah,
that
it's like
can
a.
be physical. You need to watch more Star Trek so you catch up on
I don't. I
holograms,
know
man.
what holograms are based on what I've seen though. Maybe Star Trek got it
So
wrong.
you've never seen. Well, I'm not saying anything's wrong, but you've never seen any sci-fi with a hologram
I
that
mean,
has
maybe
physical
I
properties.
have. I probably have, but when I imagine like I think it takes the fun out of like an AI if it's like unless it's becoming like an android, but like what I'm imagining for this is like a I think like an AI could fit into like an android like body, like a mech body, but like what I'm imagining for this particular character is like they are just like in the ship, like a voice of the ship, and they control the computer like a computer, but they can like access the different robots on the ship like that repair things and do stuff like that. And when it comes to actually like piloting or flying the ship, they're just able to do that through the computer.
Yeah, because they are the computer, they can just be the face of the
Yeah,
computer. Like if, instead of just walking into a room and talking to the computer, it could actually appear in front of you and talk
yeah.
to you.
Yes, it can. Or at the same time, it also has a choice to just talk to you through like speakers.
Right. That's very
Hmm.
Star Trek as well. And there's a female voice who just happens to be Gene
Oh,
Roddenberry's
cool.
wife, Majel Barrett. But anyway,
And so maybe that's what's
hmm.
happening is they get attacked and this I mean this AI, um,
Yeah.
is like in charge of shit and oops sorry, and she and
Hmm.
but a malfunction happens and these people wake up so then she appears to them in her like hologram, and it's like, you know, if you want, we can do the physical hologram thing. I don't like the idea of him like of her being able to like turn her finger into a screwdriver though. But like,
I got you. That's why I was asking you. I mean, she can be a physical being, but she can't change her form like that. She's programmed. That's how the doctor is. He is a program, and the program determines what his eyes look like, what his hair looks like, what clothes he's wearing. It's a program. It's a computer program. But when he appears, he
but
is
what
a
is the
physical
physical being made of?
being who
Like
can pick up.
when he would appear, I would imagine it'd be like a projection. What is it made
What?
of? When you touch it, what are you touching?
Well, it's just like in the holodeck. They've learned to, or when you beam from one place to the other, they're changing energy and matter into the different forms and then back to it again. So they've learned to manipulate energy and matter to make it whatever form you want it to be. But there just have to be projectors for it to be in front of you. Like you go on a holodeck adventure and create any scene you want. You know, you can dive out of a plane, you can climb a mountain, you know, because it's created by the holodeck. So they're just fiddling with energy and matter to make it look however they want it to look. And that's what they
Well,
can do
maybe
with the
with this
doctor.
then we can kind of like meet halfway and like whenever they want to physically interact, there are like robot bodies that they can inhabit. And so
Okay.
if they, let's say like, oh no, an alien's attacking and one of our friends is gonna die, the AI jumps into a robot body and then punches him with that robot body. And like, and whenever
Okay.
they
So
leave
then we're
that
going
robot body,
to go ahead.
it either powers down or it goes into like its own like virtual intelligence where it's just like a robot that follows commands or whatever.
Gotcha. So we're going to have to do some work to design what our robots look
Yeah.
like
Yeah, so
because,
like
you
maybe that's
know,
what's going
that's
on the
interesting.
ship is there's an artificial intelligence that runs things, and there are robots that repair things and handle things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And if ever need be,
Mm-hmm.
the AI could jump into that body to like interact with the real world. Because that sci-fi I've watched like that, a
Got
big
it.
theme is like an AI is just hanging out like in the ship, not physical, and they
Mm-hmm.
there's an android body like or a robot that is like built for them that they then inhabit and become that. And so I think
Gotcha. So you really haven't watched
I
very
guess I
much
haven't
Star
watched a
Trek.
whole lot of Star Trek, but I've seen a lot of sci-fi. I really have. Just not necessarily
Got
that,
it.
I guess. But so maybe,
Well, that's what we
yeah.
have to figure out,
So
you
maybe
know.
um ship is under attack, and like you were saying, like maybe it's like an aliens group that got cut out of the deal. Maybe it's like a rogue group of the other of the species that we know, but it's a rogue group who doesn't want their species to interact with humans. Maybe they think that it's like, well, if we
Yeah.
should do this, so that they are like a terrorist, basically, like trying to sabotage stuff,
Gotcha.
and that causes conflict and stuff like that. So maybe it's this other, and we'll come up with
Mm-hmm.
names and stuff probably like next episode, but it's this other ship that attacks, causes malfunctions. Our heroes wake up. We'll pick which one to start with, and the AI is like, okay, you're under attack. Here's what's going on. I'm trying to fix it. Just stay calm, and they have to like get out of that problem, and the AI is able to jump them away, but now they're in the issue where they are now awake.
They're just all awake and they
Yeah,
don't know how to. I mean, if there's AI running the ship, there's got to be a problem with the ship because we were talking about how are we going to get the ship to the
mm-hmm.
planet last episode. So that would be the AI's straight job. So there's going to have to be some kind of a problem they don't know how to fix. And we were talking about is there communication? Like how close are they to the
Right.
planet? Do they actually have the
What if
ability to
like
talk to
what
them
if
and those
okay,
kind
so
of
what if
things?
like the ship gets like they get away, like they were able to jump the light speed, but they in the by doing this they are off course, like they throw themselves off
Mm-hmm.
course, and
Mm-hmm.
also there's damages that take time to repair. And so what if they have to like
Mm-hmm.
land on or like an uncharted planet? Um,
Well, that's the question because what we were saying earlier is that we're going to start with them waking up and end with them on the planet. So if they have to stop, there has to be the whole, is there going to be enough energy or whatever it is to maintain, or can these bodies stay in
right,
cryo
and
this
maybe
much
it's like,
longer?
oh crap, we
Or
need more element zero,
something.
whatever, and it's like, well, it's on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm detecting large sources of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it would take me and my like robot crew like years to do it, and so like then the people have to step up, and that's like the scenarios they face where it's damaged, so they have to land this uncharted planet, and that's a good point. Like maybe we need more energy or more power, and or it could just be as simple as it can be that, and it could be like, okay, we're waiting on repairs. Oh crap, this planet isn't uninhabited. Crap
Mm-hmm.
ensues. Maybe like a couple of the members of the group get like taken in the night. And so they're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh crap, here we go. We're ready to leave, but we can't leave without our friends. So we have to go find them and get them. And then shenanigans ensue and such.
Okay, so that means that during this particular story we're telling, the journey to the planet is going to have the problem of the other aliens attacking because they don't want Earthlings or whatever they're calling us at that
Yeah.
point coming to there, or they were against the agreement or whatever their
Mm-hmm.
situation is as terrorists. So that knocks our ship off course. They're going to need to stop somewhere for repairs because they can't keep going the way they're going. And they get on this planet because they have to land. And it seems uninhabited from space, but once they get there and they're getting the repairs done, they realize that there is also some kind of life there, which we'll have to figure out because we got to define
Mm-hmm.
all our aliens. That's what makes sci-fi fun and hard at the same time because that's as wide open as your
Mm-hmm.
imagination. And so they will, some of the people will get taken. We'll have to figure out how to get them back and get off of that planet. But I mean, is the entire book going to be made up of dealing with that issue, and then once they get free of that planet, they do finally get home to their new home? Or is it going to be more like the Odyssey, where they go from the frying pan to the fire a whole bunch of times, and then they finally
I
get
think like
home?
frying
Or
pan to fire a bunch of times. Like
okay, so how many different problems do you see us writing about in a
I
book?
could even see this being like a series where it's like maybe it doesn't end with them getting there. Maybe it's just like a bunch of like maybe it's just like the journey to Terra 2, and within this journey, like which is gonna be years and years. I'm sorry, my dog's barking, but
All right, it
and maybe like they
occurs.
end up having to like go on a lots of different adventures and lots of different. I think that'd be fun if like it's like they end up getting stuck with lots of different adventures, and maybe they don't make it to Terra 2 by the end of this
Okay.
book, but they are. But the entire time, the overarching theme is getting to Terra 2.
Well,
Trying
trying to get home. I mean, that's what the Odyssey
right,
is all about.
but it's their new home.
It's the
Yeah,
journey home. It's the hard journey home. And so that opens it up to all kind of
yeah,
symbolism because that's just another layer we could talk about later. But I mean, here we're opening it up to they could all these different aliens that look all these different ways and all these
and all
different
these different
life forms,
scenarios they
plant
can encounter,
forms.
and they
Yes,
can spend time. Yeah,
right. So
and that
it's
what?
big.
Yeah, it's
It's
big because there's
big.
so many. Like I like that idea of maybe the journey takes years, and within those years we can just write about all these different whatever our imagination come up with, whatever you come up with for the scenarios we want them to encounter as they grow
Hmm.
and and change, and by the time they get to Terra 2, they are completely different people than what they would have been if they would have stayed in cryosleep.
So that brings up this question. How many people are awake? Because if we're going to make a journey that's supposed to take 3 years of cryosleep or whatever we're going to decide the actual journey is
Uh-huh.
supposed to take, how long is the journey going to take? And how many of these people are going to stay in cryo? Can the ship support the cryo for that much longer?
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Because if they all wake up, they're not going to have food
yeah. I
and
don't think it'd be
shelter,
all of them.
you
I
know,
think it'd be like at
lodging or whatever.
most like 20 people, and that's even big. Like I'm like I think it's like, and of course disagree or jump in, but like the story is about this small group of people.
I do agree, but I have the issue of if we're going to extend the 3 year journey to 10 years because they keep running into problems in the planet. We got to figure out how long we can actually extend it for the people to stay in cryo and to actually be okay once they get to Terra 2.
Well,
and is it really necessary to make this ship that kind of ship? Because if this is going to be the story we're telling, maybe this is one of the earlier crews, like one of the like the first wave we said was people going to build. So maybe these are people who are part of the second wave. Like it's the person who's going to be in charge of the government there, the person who's going to, it could just be the second wave. So it would be a much smaller group, and they wouldn't have to be in cryo necessarily.
Well, I think it's a long journey to be in cryo.
Yeah, but I think they would all wake up.
They'd all wake up,
and that way we wouldn't have. I do. I just don't see, like, if we're going to extend this journey, I don't know. We're just going to have to figure out what we want to do with that, because I don't understand why we would have a big group of people in cryo going from one adventure to the next. Is what I'm saying.
Well, not everybody's in cryo. There are people who are awake who are going from one adventure to the next.
But then you got all these people that are just hanging around, just basically like corpses on the ship, and it's like, how much longer could we really extend that out for it to make sense for them to actually be okay once we get them to the planet?
I think as long as we want them to, because we can just say, like, in this world they figured out cryotechnology that doesn't, I think in a lot of sci-fi there's a thing where it's like if they're in cryo for too long they die or whatever, but like we don't necessarily have to follow that.
Okay, so if your idea about this story is going to be we leave Earth and we end up at Terra, is there anything going to happen at Terra where we would need all those people to actually make it there, or are we just going to be the end of the series or whatever we're writing is that they finally get there?
I think there's plenty of story possibility for when they actually get there.
Okay. So we would need a lot of people. I'm questioning the whole 1,000 people thing, because it would also make the ship bigger. Like, what kind of ship do we want it to be? How maneuverable is it? What does it look like? Because these people are going to have to eat, however many of them are awake.
We can just say that, like, and that's where the AI can come in and say, like, in the unlikely event that you did wake up, there is food storage. Like, there is food on here, but maybe it's like, okay, there isn't enough necessarily to like after time.
Right.
That's just the thing they encounter later, where it's like we have to stop again because there isn't enough food, so we have to find food somewhere. Right.
So this is sounding a whole lot like Voyager, because they're just trying to get home and they have to always find sources of the energy they run out of or the food they need or whatever.
Okay. So I see it as like a platform to just like tell various sci-fi stories about this group with this overarching goal of we have to keep the people that are still in cryo safe, and we are on our way to Terra 2. And everything they do is in overall getting to Terra 2.
Yeah, making sure the people are safe and that nothing happens to whatever's powering them, and that could even be a source of some of the conflict, like maybe as they go through here and there, something does happen and some of the people do die or whatever.
Maybe one of the people that wakes up, like you were saying, maybe it should be like the second wave. It can be, and we could even do like it's 100 people who are coming because it's the second wave, right?
Okay.
Like you were saying, because you're right, like that's a lot of different stuff to go on that juggles, so we have to be able to narrow it down. That's what you're good at, is keeping me contained.
That's what I'm trying to do. That's what I'm trying to do.
But also, I see it as just an opportunity for our imagination to run wild with it, where.
Well, that's what sci-fi is all about.
And so, and maybe one of the people that wakes up is straight up going to be like the president of this, like the leader of the city, and so.
And that would help, like in certain diplomatic situations with other aliens
would come into
and
play.
whatever.
And then also it just comes into like learn about him and the other people. Like some of them are like putting everything into keeping this one guy safe, and that causes conflict amongst the group because it's like maybe him and his like guard wakes up. So then the guard is like, oh, leader eats first, and it causes conflict and stuff. and they have to develop and grow, and like, it's all these different, like, you have like an entertainer, you have the leader, you have small time, you have a plumber, um,
Yeah.
those different things that it's like, and even the leader is like, and when at first it's the leader's eating first because the guard says so, and the guard's whole thing is he's like, all his whole character was like keeping leader safe, and it's this whole thing.
Hmm.
But then eventually everyone just like, they grow together and they're all eating at the same time or whatever, and even the leader's like, dude, chill out, like, but
Yes.
but there is a certain like sense of responsibility for keeping the leader safe because we learn that he is like the best hope for Terra 2 or whatever,
Hmm.
and then there's always that overarching, like, there, let's say like 10, I don't know, if 10 people wake up, there's 90 people who are asleep that we have to make sure stay safe, and
Right, and they have to be far enough away from Earth to where it's not like we can just turn around
right,
and go back. It's not like, oops, this happened. Let's go back and make sure that we have enough of
yeah,
everybody or whatever. We need to be more than
yeah.
halfway, I
What
would
if it's
think,
like a
and we have to define.
100-year journey from Earth?
Whoo, Lord.
I think
Oh,
I think that's plausible. Like,
jeez.
like these things, like planets are so far away from each other,
Well, I'm just thinking about a 50-year writing opportunity. I mean, these people, how old are they when they wake up, and how long are people living in
Right, yeah, but
our
no,
year
okay, no, I
33,
was saying
33?
like maybe no, like overall, not like their journey, but like from Earth to Terra 2, it's 100 years, and our people wake up,
75 years
yeah,
into it.
75 or even 95, because it's like,
Okay, so that we have 5 years
yeah,
to play
5 years,
with.
yeah.
Okay, I got you. I see. Okay, well, how long have we been
Oh,
talking? I really haven't paid
46
attention.
minutes.
There we go. We were going to try
Yeah,
to keep it
we
to
can
30,
we
but when
can
we get
wrap
to
up.
going,
Yeah.
it doesn't always work
Um,
that way. I
how do you
believe we
feel
probably should.
about this session?
I mean, I feel like all we're doing is hammering out thoughts, and the more we get ideas, the more it's going to start congealing together. That's just how all writing
Right,
processes work for me. It's like, here's an idea, here's another idea. Oh, what about this idea? And eventually, it's just all going to
yeah.
start going, oh, hey, remember what we said? If we do this, that, and the other, and it's just going
Thank
to
you for
all
keeping
click
track
in.
of ideas, and thank you for. I've just been thinking about this a lot, so I know I'm throwing all these ideas on you that
Hmm.
you might not agree with, but
Well, I feel like we just have to
right.
talk about
And
it.
I think next episode, what's important we can do is like, what kind of characters do we want to see a part of this group?
Hmm.
How many people wake up, and who are they? Who's the
Yeah.
protagonist?
Yeah, at this point, because we kind of have a very vague thought of what the now we're talking about writing more than one book, we need to figure out who our characters are, and then once we start saying that, that's going to be clicking in with what we've already decided for plot. The setting is going to be variable, so it'll just affect the different
Mm-hmm.
adventures. But there's a lot going on
There
here.
is a lot. I like
So
it.
how many characters? We got the leader. What is his name? The leader, is he going to be the president? Is he going to be
Governor. I think he'll
the
be like, or what
the
is like?
governor? Prime
I think
minister?
like
I don't
governor,
know.
like it's like they're establishing like a state almost in a way, right?
Hmm.
And so he's the governor.
Hmm.
Um, I would guess
Yeah. So we have him and his guard and somebody who's interested in studying life. I don't
like a
know exactly.
biologist.
Yeah, I'm gonna just put study
Yeah,
life
like a
person, and we'll
scientist.
figure that out because it might kind of narrow down. And that's three. And if we're talking about seven, we'll have to
I
figure
really
out,
want one of them to be a plumber for
just
some reason,
okay.
just a
So
regular
plumber.
dude.
We're gonna have to figure out their ages
Yeah.
as well. Um, and so once we kind of start figuring out that and kind of where they're going, like who they are, why they're going to Terra 2. An entertainer. We have to have that. We
Yeah.
had said that earlier because they have to start setting up what they consider so important there. In fact, let me see. I had some notes about some of our characters. Let me see. Entertainer was definitely one of them. One of them. Well, that's going to be the plumber. Will be the person from Asia. Um, okay, just different walks of life and whatever. Okay, so we'll come back to that. It's just hammering it
Hammering it
out.
out. Yeah.
Getting it all straight.
So I like this,
Yep.
guys. Tell us in the comments what you think of our ideas. Our all over the place ideas so far, but it's all
And the brainstorming is a very helpful thing. A lot of people that I teach skip brainstorming. They just think it's pointless. They don't brainstorm at all. They don't outline at all. They just start writing. You can't write something like this without just getting a bunch of ideas and then organizing them and then starting to write them. You just can't. You can't do it.
I agree.
So,
I'll let you wrap us up.
All right. Well, I think this has been most entertaining. And of course, for anyone who's hanging around bored during the quarantine, take a page from our book, and start writing your own story and sharing your thoughts about your story or our story. We'd love to hear anything you have to add. So I will say thank you so much for listening to us. And this has been Donna. Stay creative.